What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. I'm your host, Ren, aka Mr. Refine. I got my co-host with me, D Neal, aka the Podcast King. And before we go forward, let me give a major shout out to our sis, our other co-host, KinkySudz.
Suds, what's up?
That intro, every time I look at that intro, I'm just reminded of her complexities, her work, her artistic abilities, all the nuances that come with it. Shout out to you, sis. We miss you, and we can't wait to have you back on here, man.
Yeah, that's a for real, man. That's 100%.
Facts. So today we are talking about Netflix's own, and I got to give it to y'all. Netflix has been killing the anime game. I'm just gonna call it what it is. Vampire in the Garden: The Search for Eden. We're gonna get into that, but before we get into that, let's do our normal. What is it that you drinking on, bro?
Man, so I had to, I was trying to get some Hella Coastal yesterday, but I got off of work late. So, last week, I got the opportunity. Earlier this week, I got an opportunity. I told myself I finally got to pour up, man. I gotta do it, man. So I got the Crown and Hops with the John and Vinny's Italian collaboration. This green sleeves Italian Pilsner. And when I say it's kind of, honestly, man, this is like, it's like it reminds me of a Coors, but just a little high level Coors. You know what I mean? That bite that I miss with certain Pilsners that people just don't like about beer when they associate themselves with beer when they never had it, or they had it first time. They always think of that nasty bite that the hop leaves on the tongue of a lager, like typically it's like a Budweiser or something that they get, or a Coors, or not necessarily a Corona. But I had to get that, man. And this thing, when I say it's fire, man, easy drinkable. Just a story with Crown and Hops, man. Shout out to Neal and Benny, steadily with the push to bring the community together. And this is a focus again on the jazz aspect. So even though they got the collaboration with Johnny and Vinny, like, again, they constantly pushing that reality of what Black people do and what they have done and what we continue to do. So shout out to them. And then I had to get this one because I couldn't get the limited edition joint, you know what I mean? So I just had to pick this up. I picked it up in the stores. Black people love beer. Come on, man, you already know. Classic hazy IPA, definitely a lot of citrus in there. And again, another easy drinkable thing. For me, I think that right now we're getting too heavy in the IPAs and hazies, like, especially because I know they sell the most.
Yes, they do.
Right now, currently, they're the easiest because they don't take as long to produce. When it comes to being a brewer, and you can just knock them out like literally within a 2-week, 3-week span, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, man, shout out to Crown and Hops, man. And if you didn't invest the first go round, you're gonna miss out on your glass. I can't wait till mine come, but you gotta hold down. We can't talk about it. We gotta put our money where our mouth is, as Roland Martin always says from Roland Martin Unfiltered, man. Shout them out. So I'm done. I'm gonna pull up this Pilsner.
That was a mouthful, man. I can't even compete with that. I'm just gonna go right into this. I am drinking my own homebrew New England IPA. You feel me? This is what I'm sipping on right now. Easy drinking hazy IPA. And like you said, it took me 8-9 days from grain to glass. I brewed this last Wednesday. Today is Friday. It's ready, but it's still dry hopping right now to be officially ready on July 4th. I'll be drinking it nicely then, but right now it tastes ready right now. That's just what it is. Then to follow it up, I have Genesee's Tropical Pineapple Coast, something light, easy drinking. It's early over here. It's early on the West Coast, so we ain't gonna get crazy. I gotta cut my boy's hair after this. That pour is beautiful, and like I said, You already know what time it is. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, brother. Cheers. I cleaned
So
my glass and it didn't clean enough, so I'm not gonna hold up the whole thing.
all good. Don't worry about it. Don't even trip on it. Don't even trip on it. So let's get into the show, man. What's your good, your bad, and your ugly? We just gonna go through all of them. We ain't gonna do the going back and forth. Just do your thing with it.
Bro, man, this show is amazing, bro. Like, I'm not even going front. Like, this is, you have so many vampire inspired shows. I mean, you got Castlevania, which I think on the last season kind of, especially towards the end, I wasn't a big fan of it, but it did follow along with the game. But this Vampires in the Garden, I don't know if it's been a manga or a novel before it got turned into a anime. Man, they took their time. They kept the emotion, but they didn't overplay it. And then they just really show something, which I'm going to talk about later on, this ideal of escapism and trauma. And it just, when I said they haven't even opened it up all the way, but they showed the humanity and vampires and it just showed the humanity in humans and the humanity in vampires that made me be like, wow, that was crazy. As far as my bag goes, I'm just gonna say certain aspects when it came to the vampires versus humans was actually, especially when they were getting into fights, it almost seemed like vampires were like almost hyena-esque in the sense of like, even though they were individually strong, what I did like is that they didn't overplay their strength to the point that they were so stronger that like one or two humans couldn't fight against them. But that also ties into the fact of their reluctancy of or limit on blood. So my bad on that is just kind of like, I was thinking there's certain things that I'd be like, damn, would the human really survive in that one-on-one type of fight? And I'm not necessarily talking about the uncle, because the uncle's fire and we're gonna get to him later, but definitely with other people, it was just like, come on, man, like bullets don't really be phasing them like that. So I just kind of, that my bad was just that whole aspect of like not showing vampire strength, especially when it came to the lack of blood and resources. I think they would have been way more vicious. But I don't, we still got to learn their whole societal structure and elders and all how that plays out, because we only got a glimpse of that in season one. And then my ugly, I didn't really have an ugly, man. Like, I really did not have an ugly. This show
I'm not
really,
surprised you don't.
Yeah, this show really showcased to me, like, it'd be very pessimistic at times, but it really just showcased the reality of humanity in all different aspects through the eyes of vampires. And it was crazy how much, like, when you stuck in your own ways, maybe that's my ugly, just the way that the vampires and the humans were so stuck in their own ways that they did not look at the fact that they were literally just killing each other day in and day out. They really, they weren't moving forward. So that's all I got.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go with my good. First off, like I said, Netflix has been killing it when it comes to anime series. We just coming off the legs of talking about Morbius vampires. I love vampires when it comes to folklore, mythology, sort of stuff. I am into the supernatural, and that is pure vampires. I love them. So this was right up my alley. The animation was great. The storyline was dope as hell, and just everything involved, even the relationships that they had with each other, was just absolutely beautiful. They had no bars were held. Nothing was held back when it came to the violence aspect, when it came to the gore. Pretty much everything was out in the open, and I really appreciated that. My bad was pretty much seeing the relationship between the two, humans and vampires, and how actually that could have been better if they would have communicated. But we can kind of talk about something along those lines later on. And my ugly is just that experience where they finally reach this special place, and we'll spoiler alert that later on, and what happened along with that. But it also lets you know that if you're not a good judge of character, you can't read body language, you can't read people, which most Black people can. And I know I can, because I was silent most of my life. I didn't talk too much. I'm shy. Did a lot of observing behaviors. They didn't observe what was going on, so they were kind of hoodwinked and bamboozled into this false reality, and, as you said, escapism when it came to certain things. But we're going to talk about all that later on, so I don't want to spoil anything right now. So that was my good and bad and my ugly, and we're going to transition right into this one. Let's talk about this first episode. What's your thoughts on that?
Come on, man. First episode was fire. Come here, kiddo. And my co-host trying to ride her scooter in the house. This kills
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But no, first episode, it was really a real quick synopsis of what's going on, how humans and vampires have been fighting, and you really saw this as honestly the way that the episode started off. It made the humans seem like the most aggressors. It made them seem like the aggressors, like they were coming in, we're gonna kill all these vampires. The little girl who was there, spoiler alerts, the little girl and the vampire who's sitting in the corner
Mm-hmm.
scared as hell, and then she injects herself with this serum and just goes monster mode. And it just
Yeah,
really it showcased the fact that I think it was showing the difference in the generations. So Momo, thank you for the spoiler alert. Momo, the main character, just really showed that split between where, and it always happens in our history as a species, where someone's like, "Nah, that's not right," and I'm not gonna do this, and I'm not, and even though I'm trying to do it, I'm messing up and I'm getting everybody else killed because I really don't want to do this. So that's what I enjoyed the first episode, hands down, man.
perfect, man. I'm glad you said it because I also did the same. Like you get to a chance to see not her full inner side, but Fine and Momo, just that introduction to both characters. Fine was absolutely beautiful to me, and I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about inside as well as exterior. Just the way she held everything together, the way that she had this love for just life. Considering that she was a vampire, she wasn't the typical vampire in the sense of, oh, we're just drinking humans' blood, we're doing this and we're ruling over them, right? She was a queen. Let's just talk about that. She was the
Facts.
queen from what we understood. And they didn't get into too much detail as to why she kind of stayed back. I'm kind of piecing in my own mind why she didn't want to have that queen role in her mind. But she got the respect. She did what she needed to do there, and you've seen some action. They just kind of got right to it. Where her right hand, which is also I would say her best friend. Again, we're going to talk about that later. He was holding things down, and they got right to it. And that whole rift between the two, it was ugly, but it was good at the same time. So that first episode, man, it was, to me, it was everything. It let you know it was kind of a foreshadowing as well as a introduction just to everyone, what's going on, why these people are going through this and that, and it was beautiful and well put together. Now,
Agreed.
that being said, were you surprised with the physical slash mental strength of Fine? And there's a reason I'm asking that. Based
Mm.
on what we've seen through the entire series, was anything surprising to you? Matter of fact, we don't even have to go with the entire series. Let's just go with first episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say no because again, watching enough vampire shows, you always find that one vampire. Again, spoiler alerts. We're gonna just do it all day. You always gonna find that one vampire that has befriended um, a human in a way where either they fall in love or they just become best friends. Hold on one second. I got to rest around. Go ahead, go and talk. But anyway, I was not surprised. I'll let you finish.
Okay, so for myself, I definitely wasn't surprised, and the reason why I wasn't is because when you think of vampires, you're thinking of like just strength, period, the physical attributes of them. You know, they're able to drink blood, etc. But we just witnessed this with Morbius, where this guy was able to jump here, jump there, fly, had superhuman strength, the healing abilities, etc. Now on this thing, they kind of had like a cheat code if you wanted to commit suicide and pretty much give you all, where they injected themselves with a kind of a super serum sort of thing, and they transform into, I would say, their natural form or worst form ever, their ultimate being, as if like Super Saiyan 4 sort of thing. They transform into this creature. And again, I got to drop this spoiler alert on this joint. They did that and they were able to take out everyone or reach the goal that they were trying to reach. That right there, titled in, intertwined, excuse me, with Fine's ability to use her mental prowess to do whatever was she doing, and her being the queen of the vampires. She probably already been around for I don't know how long. I would say at least 1,000 years. I'm just going to give it that minimum. But she had the ability to see, have the foresight to see ahead of certain things, but also have the strength to persevere. And I'm talking about battles, them introduction scenes with her fighting. crazy. It's undescribable. It was kind of like watching Morbius his first time. Excuse me, not his first time, but his warming up to fighting. It was that same sort of aspect where she just was pretty much mopping everybody and flying, doing stuff with ease, and it was beautifully put together. And then to factor in, we all know vampires' lifeblood is blood. She didn't drink it. This woman's strength was impeccable. Period. And that's all I got to say on it. No more spoiler alerts.
That's a fact.
So, let's talk about the thoughts on the rifts between the vampires and the humans. What's your thoughts on that?
Trauma. and the reason why I say that so heavily is that the one thing that I didn't write in the question is just this idea of music. And they literally, how Fine broke that down. Nice, beautiful pour. Broke that down with Momo about music and how she
Shout
just
out to Break too, by the way.
Yeah, that's good. How Momo had this innate aspect of wanting to do music, wanting to hear sounds and sing, and all this was here. And it was like, it was crazy how this whole conversation about, like, so again, spoiler alerts, how the music, literally humanity stopped playing music. They stopped doing music at all because the vampires' hearing was so adept and so keen that wherever they were hiding, if they just heard a string, they just came and they just killed them. And like that trauma, even to the point where you create this wall of light, as they call it, and you have this full on, like, what seems to be impenetrable, but not really, but just this full on fortress. And yet and still you don't play music, just kind of showed me how trauma and how it relates to just Black people in general, as far as just how things continue throughout the genes. It's like, we just don't do that. But why? Because the vampires, but we have this whole empire of light that we have created, and the vampires know where we are, but yet and still we won't music. But again, that side of humanity in the show, that aspect of love and joy and everything through music, was stripped away from them for survival. And so they are continually, just like the vampires, they're in continual survival mode and not thriving mode. Because even the vampires, on the flip side, the music that they play is all from humans. Everything that they played is from humans. There is nothing new that the vampires have created when it came to music. Everything they listen to is old music. When their first generation of vampires came and started killing or enslaving humans, that's exactly what they had. And so to me, it just showed me that trauma is just very significant.
Wow, that was very well said, and I'm glad you said it, because I'm going to intertwine two things. Number one, Morbius, when you're referencing that, excuse me, not Morbius, Quiet Place, right? The way that they had to live, where they pretty much made no sound, etc. Now in this story, it wasn't to that extreme, but they had a level of where, all right, we got to be quiet because they can find us, and then I'm tying in Morbius, where his super hearing and echolocation.
Exactly.
That quietness was ridiculous. But let's go back to the music aspect of it. Fine could play that piano as if she was Duke Ellington or Thelonious Monk or something like that. Like, she was lit with that piano. Now, the crazy part about it is she liked music in general. The person that she played an opera song for, Momo, was, from what I understand, also a vampire. And she was singing about, as you said, their trauma and their way of life, etc. That relationship between humans and vampires was just crazy. And in my opinion, and I don't want to get into that little city later on, because I believe I have a question where we talk about it. In my opinion, that beef, that rift between them could have been resolved. They could have had a symbiotic relationship, or at least we can coexist without fighting with each other, because there are basic things that they both had a level of understanding with each other that was very comparable on both sides. But for whatever reason, there wasn't a representative on each side to talk to each other and say, hey, we have a common ground. Let's do this to be in this place. But it was definitely a very well put together story. And I would have loved to have seen them figure out a truce or some peace. That's just me, because they had a lot.
But that's what I like about the show, and I'm not and I hope that, and it gets to our later question, so I won't linger too long, is that this whole idea of truce, it's like it's been done before, as we'll talk about when we get to Momo's uncle. But reality is the trauma from humanity
Yeah.
and the vampires. Literally, you don't know who was the person to stop that truce, because you don't
Yep.
know if it was humanity, even though they look like the aggressors. And reality is they could have been, or it could have been the vampires as well, feeding the humans something so the truce wouldn't happen. And it
Yeah.
just so I don't see that happening. And I don't know what season 2 is going to bring, but I really just do not see a escape. Again, I keep using keep using this word
Yes.
escapism,
Yes.
because I just don't see it, because no one wants to. Everyone's living in the past trauma, and even if they haven't even experienced any death by a vampire or blood sucking or anything, humanity is teaching every generation that vampires are they need to be extinct because they're going to extinguish us.
That's very well said. Crazy. Okay. So with that being said, let's talk about this. Should Momo have stayed with her mother? In layman's terms, should she have stayed in that city? You muted.
No, she shouldn't have stayed in the city. I just it wouldn't have, the show wouldn't have went. It would have probably progressed to more death, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
if she would have
Mm-hmm.
stayed in the city, because I don't even know if Momo's mom, the general, is even her real mom. You know what I mean? And that's something, not necessarily a spoiler. Yeah, spoiler
Nah,
alert,
nah,
but
nah.
it's definitely yeah, I just think that the show, I'm glad that Momo left when she did. I wish she would have left earlier, because
Yeah.
she had to see someone very close to her or die, attempting to find her when she had plenty of opportunity, when she was thinking about it the first time, to just flee.
Yep.
So I'm glad she left. I wish she would have left earlier.
For me, I believe that she should have stayed. And there's other reasons behind it, but the story was intricate and beautiful due to the fact that she left. So here we go with a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Her relationship with, I can't remember the woman's name. Obviously, we know her mother is the commander of the army. She commands all the military troops, etc. Don't remember the young lady's name that she had a relationship with, and that relationship wasn't just friendly. It was kind of a allied community relationship where we are potentially going to be together. If she would have stayed, that could have been worked out, and most importantly, she might not have never went on this path of, in my opinion, destruction slash escapism. And I don't want to get into that because I'm gonna leave that for the end. She would have went on that path because her experiences in life was, from what I've seen, she was a very naive girl, but she also had a beautiful inside, despite this reality of vampires being all around us. We're in this hint, or excuse me, air quote, fortress of light that we built, but we're really not. I believe that her staying would have changed things a lot, but it also, again, would have not made the story as beautiful as it was, based upon a relationship that we did not expect at all between Fine and Momo. So I think she should have stayed with her mother. That's just me. But I also like the fact that she didn't, because it led into some other stuff. Now, with that being said, let's talk about this. I'm gonna call him an OG just based upon some things that he did.
OG.
Yeah, and he was very interesting, and we got some insight on his background as well. Let's talk about Uncle Kubo. We didn't know his name was Kubo. I did a little research, but let's talk about him, which is Momo's uncle.
Man, Uncle Kubo is a goddamn beast. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
Uncle Kubo to me is he practices a sword. So if you think about One Piece, if you think about Samurai Champloo, I think he was on the level of a Jin from Samurai Champloo, because of the poise that he had. But one of the things why I like him as a character, as far as I call him a samurai, but a person who's adapt with swords, is that he
Mm-hmm.
literally, you never saw him lean forward or crouch. He always stood tall, and he
Yes.
never, and even when he was attacking, it was not lunge or anything. He literally just consistently just stayed poised, man. Like his battle, I mean, like he's been in some stuff. Like he's killed some people that he didn't want to kill. He's done some things that let you know that he was like, no, I'm gonna get it done. But even even in that aspect, the you could tell off the bat that he's been through something that putting him in a hardened mindset to where his heart was cold towards vampires, and in reality too, a lot of times it was cold towards human beings as well. And you get to see that. Yeah, I know you get to see that in the show towards the end of the season. But this man, when I say you should watch this show, and especially just watch Uncle Kubo, who constantly is like, he's like that, like, I don't care what authority says or anything, but then you get to see what happened and why he was like this whole reality of Eden. He just was like, this is just a facade, like it's never real, but reality is that he doesn't truly believe that. He's just broken from what happened.
Yes. Yes. So I'm gonna leave that spoiler alert up. Uncle Kubo, like you said, I feel like he was creme de la creme samurai sort of thing. This dude was impeccable with the way he manipulated and handled that sword, katana, whatever. He was nice with it. You seen, and here's the spoiler: you seen the battle when he was fighting in the fancy Eden village. I don't know what the name of the village is, but I'm gonna say Eden because it's like the Garden of Eden. It's the perfect place, etc. He kicked some butt in there. Period. This dude was taking things out, and even before that, when they were fighting in an earlier episode, he couldn't be touched. That dude was moving around as if nothing was going on. Mind you, he's a human fighting
Yes,
against vampires who have supernatural and
abilities.
superhuman
Yes,
speed and abilities. He's moving like, yeah, I see you right before you. I'm moving. Slash, you're done. He was so smooth with it, it was ridiculous. But we also understand he has trauma because of who? His big sister, the commander, who
facts.
forced him to make a hard decision on some stuff early on. And it ties in with his niece and the relationship with Fine. It's just, this story was so well put together, man. This is why I had to put some respect on it because it's a beautiful story. But Kubo was lit. I would love to see more about him despite that short glimpse that we witnessed. And he did his thing the whole time through. He did his thing, period. So
That's a fact.
with that being said, this is perfect segue to this next question. What's your thoughts on the relationship between Allegro and Fine?
Yeah, like Allegro or Allegor, I think is they pronounced it. I don't know. I call him Allegor, but but Allegro or Allegor, he literally was for the he was for the species of the vampires. He loved Fine hands down. Um, he wanted to be our protector. He promised that to her when they were children. But you just all he was attempting to do was to make sure that she was safe. Like he didn't care, even when the on the scene where the elder said she needs to come back. And this is, I mean, you can put this as spoilers, but all of it spoilers. But when the
Yeah.
elders, yeah, when the elders said that she needs to help they need to repopulate the vampires and to provide the source more source of blood. Like he just said yes, but all he was attempting to do was to ensure that Fine was not hurt. And what happened to Fine and her previous experience with humans traumatized her to a level where she didn't want to drink blood, and he didn't like that. He wanted her to be safe. Period. Like he only did he had a it was like between being there for the species and being there for Fine. And reality is even though he was like the main general or soldier to fight with the vampires, all of it was for Fine. Point
Yeah.
blank period. It's like
Yeah.
my sunbeam. Like that's exactly what he was
I was
doing.
waiting for
I
you
know
to say
he's yeah.
that.
But he still, but unlike the dude, unlike my sunbeam guy or dragon in the other the other show
Yeah.
with Allegor or Allegro, he literally did things to still advance the species because he was like, I still got to play both sides. Because reality is, he was like, I felt like if Fine said let's leave right now, he would just leave. He would take her and they would go wherever they wanted to go. But he still wanted to. He wanted to make sure the people, I mean, his species survived, but he also just wanted to make sure Fine, whenever she was ready to just remove herself from all of it, they would do so.
Mm. Mm. I can't say nothing else. No, but I can. I can. So that relationship was kind of like, brother and sister. First in command, second in command. And as you said, he wanted her safe. But more importantly, who was he in the hierarchy of vampires?
That's a fact.
Because this dude commanded all of them when she wasn't around. Since they were kids, because you kind of seen a glimpse of that. Since they were kids, they were very close, and he always vowed to protect her. Who was he in the vampire hierarchy? Like, for real, that's what I really want to know, because he was he was unstoppable. He was very, very
strategic, all that, man.
Like this dude,
he was the Kubo for the vampires. He was Uncle Kubo for the vampires. Like, fact.
Like that relationship between the two of them was just so dope. It was beautiful, and it was sad that he didn't get to witness something that we'll talk about later on, because I got a question about that at the end. That relationship was a quintessential general and lieutenant sort of thing, where if I'm not here, the pieces, the puzzle, the chessboard still moves without me being here, because we have the same mind. You know what I want, or at least you have an idea what I want. Even if they were conflicting or butting heads on ideas or ideologies, they still got the same message across. And that whole relationship was crazy as hell. And you seen that just based upon the introduction. He was like, yo, we going right now. Let's do this, this, and this. The lights should be down. They not down. All right, we going in. This is what it is. And here's another funny part I got to throw in there. Those lights weren't that useful depending on who you were. They didn't affect Fine. They definitely didn't affect Allegro. He was able to deal with him like it was still hurt him, but it wasn't like the rest of the vampires where they kind of fell and withered down on the ground a little bit. So that was just crazy, man. Crazy, but a beautiful relationship. So this is the question I've been trying to get to, because I kind of understand something there, but I want to know your opinion on it. What was the relationship between Fine and Momo? What relationship did they have?
I think the relationship was more for Fine than Momo significant, in the sense of Momo was still seeing, Fine was still seeing Momo as the person that Fine had experienced with her first experience with humanity. And this, spoiler, that first experience with humanity, and this first experience of like this thing of Eden, this let's run away, again, hint, escapism. And I think that, and even Fine said it, like, I was using you to fill a void, and this void that I wanted you to be this person, and you're not this person. You're Momo. You're not the person. And I got her name written down, but you're not her.
I got the name.
Yeah, I got the name written down, but you're not her. You're yourself. And you also opened my eyes to really show that what I decided to not drink blood, to not engage in these wars between humans and vampires, and become this puppet, because she did mention that, and I was like, okay, hint, hint, there's something going on to where she doesn't want to be queen, because it sounds like they just about to impregnate her, or she about to just bite a whole bunch of people. Yep. I don't know, like they didn't really jump into that, but that's really what I thought of that relationship. It was like she was Fine, Momo was Fine's crutch, and instead of Fine was just using her to escape, to be happy and feel that feeling she felt in the past with her first interaction with human beings. But what happened was that Momo was actually bringing her to reality. She was like, no, I'm my own person, and this is how I feel and do things. And it's not just believing everything in what you say, but I do enjoy the music, and I do want to escape this war, because I don't want to fight. I don't want to kill, from Momo's perspective. And so I think that once Fine really opened her eyes to reality, especially when they got to the scene that you talked about with the quote unquote fake Eden.
Yep.
I think Fine already had a feeling that it was off. But Momo was like, no, this is what I really want. And I think Fine really just wanted to be with her and another person. And it just seemed to be Momo at the time. But Fine really didn't even want to go to Eden. She wanted to create her own Eden, where it was just her and whoever else she was with.
Yes.
So it was really deep in that regards, but definitely a crutch until she got slapped in the face with reality.
Yep. I agree with that. In my opinion, I would say that they had a friend relationship, but I also think I'm not going to say sexual, but they had a budding love sort of relationship, to where it could have been where they were together as partners, just based upon, and I got to throw this up here, spoiler alert, just based upon the history between Fine and the other woman. I don't remember, and I think it was Aria, something along that line, started with an A. they were friends, but I believe that was a love relationship also. And Fine was young, like you see
Yes.
her as a child
Yeah.
vampire, maybe even a teenager vampire. And this relationship kind of mirrored the one that Fine had with the woman that passed away, the human that passed away. Because let's get that understood. The relationship between the two was vampire and human, and just like on Blade, shout out to Blade, Marvel. Humans are cattle, vampires are, they're the prey. They're like you, we livestock. So for her to have a relationship, whether friend or a love relationship, was very interesting within itself. And the fact, as we understand, they're searching for this place where vampires and humans can coexist peacefully, which is also a whole facade. We already know about that. But they're searching for this place, and it doesn't necessarily happen, but they have their own Eden within themselves, because that car ride that they had once Momo left the city, when she left her mom and got away, their relationship just grew. And what happened is, the first time that Fine seen Momo, it was like she heard her singing out there, and it was like, I pretty much want to commit suicide. And she said, wow, you remind me of somebody, Usher status, you remind me. She reminded her of somebody from her past. They hit it off. They became friends. They weren't lovers, but I believe it would have eventually led to that. That's just me. And I think that personally, that was a very deep relationship that it had to go left. Somebody had to be sacrificed, and it was a life learning experience for both of them. So this is what I've been really waiting to get to. What's your thoughts on a village of Eden? That's what I'm gonna keep calling it Eden. That's just me.
I know. I forgot what they called it, but what I'm gonna say, man, is that they were very I'm trying to figure out the word, but like just the whole aspect. You can put the spoiler alerts on here, man. It's just spoilers all day, man. We got to start putting spoilers.
Just keep it up. It's up.
Just in the title.
It's up.
But for that village to take a vampire, utilize their blood to create electricity, to me was hands down like that was fire. And even the small vampire that was like supposedly allegedly the same age as Momo, when her and Momo's conversations were like, that's the reality that what Fine said about this is, something's off. This is not the Eden, that this is not our Eden.
Yeah.
It was just a reality that vampire and the humans that were with her, it was not this Eden and happy joy. It was almost like a setup to get people to come in, both vampires and humans, to utilize them in a way. And everybody in the village already had the understanding, like, no, this is not our Eden. This is Eden for us because we get electricity. We can take this blood. We can sell this blood. You know what I mean? We make sure that we have enough, and any excess that we're going to charge. And anybody who comes here, instead of fighting them head on, we're gonna bring them in and make them. It's like any video game you play where you go to a crazy town and it's like everybody's happy go lucky, but there's some shit happening in the background. And even like the horror movies and all that stuff. There's more than there's more to the eye than what you're seeing. So I enjoyed that village because it did test Fine, and it also tested Momo in the sense of like, it's back to that point of escapism. You cannot escape a mentality. That's one thing I think is really key about that village, is that it's not that everybody had that mentality, but to your point, trusting people because not because you trust them, but because they show you what it is that you want. So you believe them because of that, and you get blinded to it because you're tired of the fight. But the fight never ends, and that's real, and that's just a reality.
And that's perfect, because this village, number one, was definitely a facade. The fact that they were able, and I'm keeping a spoiler alert up because we talking about it now, we here. The fact that they were able to use a vampire to power the city, and we know again they are superhuman abilities, speed, all of that. That says something. Who had the ingenuity to come up with the idea of using their blood to do that was crazy. Now, the funny thing is, just based upon the first experience, first introduction, I expected it to be a small, kind of Inuit town. You've seen the Inuits and the natives of the area. I expected it to be friendly and they were all a coexisting community, but that wasn't the case. There was a facade. They had that vampire trapped down there. They drained in his blood to power the city. And the relationship that Momo had with the little girl vampire, who was like the girl from Interview with the Vampire, like what was that? Kristen Stewart is her name from Spider-Man. That's her. You are my friend forever. I've been waiting for somebody my age, but the reality is, you will grow old. I'll still be the same. And then number two, I'm just using you right now because we have something else that we're doing here. We're living a coexisting, peaceful Eden. But reality is, it's not like that. Somebody has to get sacrificed for the greater good of everybody else. And I don't know whatever else they had going on there, period, because they was locking her in a room while they was trying to get a hold of Feeney. Like,
right?
Get her, trade her out for this other dude and drain her blood as well. So that city was crazy as hell. And then to see, again, spoiler alert, that's why I was going to stay up here. When the commander, Uncle and all them pulled up in that joint, they said, oh, yeah, we know what time it is. It's over. And that battle that ensued between them was crazy, man. But that whole little idea of Eden that both of them were searching for, it was just a facade. It was so false. And unfortunately, Momo, who was naive, experienced some reality. She had to wake up, as you said. That battle does not end on whatever is going on. Your battle doesn't end. You're just trying to escape your reality. You can't. It's like getting drunk and saying, okay, my problems will go away. Guess what? When you're sober, they're still here. Period. So I got to skip the one. I'll push back on that. Okay. How did the trauma of the human vampire war continue to feed the escapism mindset of the society?
Man,
I know you've been waiting on that one
all day. No,
yeah.
I mean, it was so heavy because nobody. Back to your point when you mentioned earlier, it was like nobody was looking at it. They didn't take a step back. They weren't looking at the rationale of they just weren't looking at the rationale, man. They everything was like, we got to eradicate them, and then vice versa with the vampires is like, we got to kill them all or we got to subjugate them. But then you get to see the crazy thing, and I should have answered that with the question about Momo and should she have left her mother or the Tower of Light, or however they call it. Literally not too far from the Tower of Light, they have a border, and it was literally the river was the border between the vampires on one side and the humans on the other. And what were they doing? They were literally trading blood to the vampires for gold. It tripped me. I was like, it's so crazy. But the other thing too about it, it's like you pretty much the vampire hierarchy wanted the humans because it was like that hierarchy the aristocracy wanted to keep control, because majority of the vampires in the show were starving for blood. Mm-hmm. They literally were living, they were dying. Like, it was crazy to me to see that. It was like instead of dealing with the reality and sitting down, and also I think now that I think about it, like Fine's character, she wanted to do these things, but instead of utilizing her power and using Allegro, using him in a strategic way to push her agenda through politics, which everything is political in life, she just wanted to leave because she was traumatized. But she knew the other side of what they wanted her to do, and she didn't want to do that. But you just don't know. Like, you don't know if there's vampires stronger than her. You just don't know. And then for humanity, it's like you got the humanity that lives in the city walls, and then you have the ones that do not. And again, it's like, it shows me that no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, there's always going to be a group of people who are like, we want control and we don't want to think about it your way, because that means we'll lose power. That means we don't need to build these walls. That means we don't need to build the colonel or the commander, excuse me, not the general, but the commander who had the focus to build the mechs and utilize them. Like, everything was about control, constant control and eradication. And it was the feeding of fear between both groups. to the children and the generations beyond, that they were like, we can never coexist, but yet and still we're both behind our closed doors. What's happening behind in our house is even worse than what's going on. So it was just, I mean, how that fed escapism, it just continually perpetuated this thing of like, it's the human's fault, or it's the vampire's fault, or if we just run away from this war, we don't have to deal with any craziness. Everybody be happy. And reality is that people are still trying to find a way to get over, because they've been traumatized about scarcity when there really wasn't any.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. So let me go ahead and put this up. Look, like you said, we about to keep that in the title. This is just
spoiler alert.
So you witnessed the part where there were humans feeding vampires, grown and children vampires. Hey, we're gonna give y'all blood, and they doing whatever. They've already accepted the coexistence between the two societies. But then on the other hand, you have Fine and Momo, and probably some other vampires or humans who have the same reality or ideology of, let's escape this reality.
Right.
Let's go to a peaceful place and live and coexist together. And like you said, that city where they had a border between, there was a river, vampires, they were coexisting, but there was still some kind of cruel harshness to it, some primal behavior involved where, okay, you got that, and they call the humans worms.
Yes.
Vampires call humans worms. They're like, oh, you got some worms in here? That's cattle. She can't sleep in here. She needs to sleep out there in the barn, sort of thing. Like that we all feeding off of her when females brought her into town. This idea of finding a peaceful place where we can coexist has existed probably since the beginning of time. Just we talking about us and it's today's society. And in relation to that series, you'll never escape your reality. The only thing you can do is adjust to what's going on and try to find ways to maneuver and live through it and live the best way possible. Because as you've seen, none of them were able to escape. Somebody got sacrificed for the greater good in that village. And then at the end, the same thing happened. You can't escape reality. It's always going to be here. Best thing you can do is face it head on and live your life how you're supposed to live your life. And hopefully you have a good one. But that was an excellent.
Before you get on that, and this ties into what's going on just with society today. Okay, Daddy, I'll put it on. With society, co-host come in and say, hey, thanks a lot. But with society today, it's this whole thing that if we just find this, if we just live our lives and put our head in the sand and keep doing the thing that we doing, it won't be a problem, instead of being active. Like, everything is political, man. Everything is political. So for me, it was just sad that Momo, I mean, not Momo, but because Momo really didn't have the power. Momo was a pawn to the general, and I'm trying to figure out why, because that's something that's definitely still not figured out. But Fine literally had the power. She had a general that would kill everybody for her, and she could have utilized that to bring in some order. But what we don't know is the hierarchy. Again, we don't know who those elders are. We don't know if there's an elder like Dracula in the Vampire in the Garden society. Like we just don't know, because like when it comes to Fine compared to Dracula, Fine is more human-esque as far as strength-wise compared to Dracula from Castlevania, because Dracula stayed in the castle by himself for decades, centuries, didn't drink no blood, and was still that dude.
Yeah, he was. I don't know what he got going on, but he was lit.
He was doing some magical spells and some herbs and all that stuff, bro. He was
listen, you showed me that little quick preview, wasn't a trailer, but saying, hey, Castlevania's coming back. I was like, yo, it's over, because they ended
the last Belmont.
Yeah, but it ain't the last Belmont. As you see, you got another one out here. It's about to go down. So how did you feel about the ending scene? And you already know which one I'm referencing. I'm talking about, let's say, the title. We seen the other one in the garden. Now we're in a different garden with Fine. How did you feel about that?
Because the ending was not Fine laying in the But if you're talking about that ending, spoiler alert.
I'm talking about that one.
That one was like, when I say like the white flowers, which I forgot what the name of those flowers were. I think it's something that It's something that Fine wanted. Fine wanted to die peacefully, but she wanted to do that living a life with someone or a group or whoever, really was just someone that she didn't have to be this vampire with. She didn't have to be this queen. She didn't have to be that I got to save my species and suck blood and pop out babies or vice versa. And I think the way that it ended for season 1, you didn't even hear Momo sing. Like they cut you off on that. And I think that again, like to me, it was like what Fine was telling Momo was like, hey, this is when you sing and you're in pain and you cry and sorrow, when you let out that energy of pain, it helps you balance yourself to let you know that the path continues. And I think all of us can relate to that aspect of when someone close to you dies and you are sitting there trying to figure it out. The reality is that the world keeps moving. Your responsibilities are still there. You as a person or as a being, an entity on this planet, you have to keep going because you can be stuck in that place, but all you're doing is wasting away and not contributing to what it is that you want to be created. And I think the ending past that with Fine and that bed of flowers really showed that you have to move on. You can express this, and it's more so for you than the person that's gone, because the person that's gone is gone. That's it.
Yeah.
So it was good, man. It really what it was showing, and then I'll shut up. It literally was saying back to everything I'm talking about. You cannot run away from something because it will find you. But if you choose to create what it is that you want to create, then you're gonna have to put that work in. But best believe the mentality is around you, and someone or something is coming. And so you got to be ready because the fight never ends, man. Never ends.
Yo, I'm glad you keep focusing on that. But I'll say, based upon that not the ending scene per se, but the ending between the relationship between the two of them. Again, spoiler alert, to stand up. You seen Fine in those flowers, and I don't remember the name of them either. Orchids or something like that.
I don't know what the hell he called them.
Either way, she did the ultimate sacrifice, which we knew was taking that serum.
Fact.
So we're gonna keep that spoiler alert up there. She took the serum, wiped off a couple people, but the beautiful and crazy part about all that was Momo was able to reach and communicate with her through that primal instinct, primal rage, beast mode sort of thing. She was able to communicate and show even her uncle, who was about to get wiped off, like, yo, just go ahead and kill me. Fine held restraint, showed restraint, and let him live. And he was like, you know what? I got to put some respect on her name and the relationship between my niece and her, because she's still who she is beneath that primal beast instinct. But watching her pass away again, spoiler alert, watching her pass away in these flowers, that bed of flowers was beautiful. But unfortunately, it was her sacrifice which made Momo appreciate life much more, and also understand that you can have a place of beauty. You can have an Eden if you do what's right, but you are willing to sacrifice for the greater good and cause for everybody else. That was dope, man. So
yeah, that's a fact, bro.
Last and final question right here. Last and final joint. What do you think was the meaning / message of the series?
You got to take action. Like you cannot. I mean, you can run away. You can do whatever. Like there's choices to everything that you do, but you have to take action. Trauma is generational. It doesn't just stop from when it happened. It continues through the bloodline, through the cultures, through the practices. And there is always going to be someone or something that's going to make someone or something wake up and say, nope, I don't want to do that anymore. And you're going to have to be that outcast, as we like to call it. And you're going to have to say, no, we can't do this anymore. This is not sustainable. And we see that all the time. Like there is nothing in our society as a species, whether we're talking about Black people that was enslaved from colonization, even before that, when it was just being in this Eden of our own, because again, we were by the equator and the continent of Africa as Africans. Like there is nothing that someone can say I mean, there's nothing that doesn't need to be changed. There's always going to be a change that's going to come, and someone is always going, or some group is always going to see something differently, and you have to be open to it. You have to take your emotions, not to suppress them. You have to channel them and say, what am I willing to do? And I think this series, it says, what am I willing to do? I can sit here and run forever, which again, even with, spoiler alert, even at the ending, it was still running. But all the running did is that sooner or later, that society that you try to run away from, it may take 500 years to change, is coming for you. And when it comes, there is no quarters given. There is no white flag raised. There is, if you're a vampire, you're dying. If you're a human, you're dying. Pick a side.
I like that you said that, but you know what I'm going with? I'm going deeper on a current level of society sort of thing, or not current level, just in general. You have two different groups of people. Let's say black and white, black, Hispanic, Mexican, white,
Asian, Indian,
Asian, white sort of thing. You're talking about two people from two different cultural backgrounds trying to become friends, as well as potentially, based on what I've seen, possibly being in love with each other. This is just what I've seen. What do we deal with on a day-to-day basis when it comes to that? You're not white enough, you're not black enough, you're not this, you're that, from both sides of your spectrum. And you're trying to find a way to maneuver through life, to find a happy place where doesn't matter what background you come from both sides of the spectrum, you're trying to coexist together. And they reflected that here. But what, at the same time, somebody's gonna have to sacrifice something so y'all can win as a couple and as a people. And that was identified in here. And it was, unfortunately, to the loss of Fine, that she sacrificed and showed that we can make something work, but somebody has to get taken away from it. And it's definitely prevalent today and continues in our societies on all aspects. Interracial marriages, any sort of dating, just in general, whether you're talking about the ally community, I don't know all the acronyms now, it's constantly being changed, but all of that was intertwined to me. At least that's what I've seen. That's what I got out of it. And I thought it was a beautiful, very well put together series. And another classic for Netflix to knock off the books.
Man, Netflix stocks may be down heavily, but one thing that they are doing is, I mean, and if people are not watching, and we're not getting paid from Netflix, so Netflix holla at us, because I know y'all got an anime section. I see it on YouTube. It really is a reality that, like, they are going heavy with shows that are first Netflix originals, and this one right here, if season 2 is done correctly and you really get to the point where decisions and sacrifices have to be made, either you are going to change or you're going to have blood, that will make the series, to me as a whole, great. But if it's something that just is like, oh, we found the light and everybody's all kumbaya, it's like, that's not a reality. It never is. It takes time, and it takes struggle and sacrifice. To your point, someone has to sacrifice. Don't necessarily mean you got to die, but at least in this series, oh yeah, you got to kill.
You got to die.
Yeah, you either got to kill or you got to be killed.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
Yo, this was another classic episode for us.
Classic.
I don't know what we talking about next week. I'm gonna hit you up and let you know, and then I'll post so that everybody know what we talking about. I got 3 things I'm choosing from, and I'll let you know what it is, because one of them I've been watching recently this week, and it is deep, to say the least. And guess what? It's also Netflix. Netflix again been killing it with anime. This is another one of those joints, so we're gonna talk about it. Yo, shout out to everybody that came and showed love today. Brick, I see you as always.
What up, Brick?
Hashtag high ABV life. You know
ABV.
what I'm saying? Got to show love. You know what I mean? Thank you again. And we'll see you again next Friday on Black Nerd Fridays, y'all, as always.
We out.